fit good.
Say, don't talk about parties without it.
Hang on, you might, somebody might have left the volume of one of these TVs, hang on a second.
Morning, everybody run.
Might be on this one over here.
Check for fires.
Now give it a try.
Okay, we will call City of Maplewood Heritage Preservation Commission.
Yeah, we don't need the volume.
Okay.
The volumes don't, so the video doesn't work through the TV monitors, it works through the main monitor. I don't know why anybody would.
But that's why they got the speakers on the wall.
Yeah. No, it should be good.
Okay. Oh, it does.
They don't turn them off.
Yeah.
They don't know how to use
Everybody
it.
stop laughing.
Yeah, okay, really?
This sounds
Okay, we'll call the City of Maplewood Heritage Preservation Commission for Thursday, January 9th, 2025 to order. And we usually start with going to the commission and asking if anybody wants to mention something like they had a hard time getting here, or just anything that they would like to say. I would say that there's no one on the streets right now, and you are lucky that you can watch this Heritage Preservation Commission. And Richard, do you have anything to add?
No, generally, I will say something when it comes up on the agenda.
Okay, John,
No.
you have nothing? David?
Thank you, 6 people, for watching us again this month.
Laura? And Christy, anything?
No.
Okay, good. All
I
right.
can't hear your head shaking. There's
Okay.
no audio there. There's no
Well,
marbles or whatever.
Thank you,
we
Richard.
call it.
We will call a roll call. The first,
I'm here.
Christy Reese, our new member, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
And Laura Koski,
Present.
welcome. Thank you. David Hughes
Here.
and John Gasper,
Here.
Richard Curry,
Here.
and myself, Bob Cardinal, and we're expecting our other member, Pete Boulay, to join us soon. All right.
Weatherman, so he's out watching the snow.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Sliding in.
Okay, first thing we will do is approve of the agenda. Does everybody have a copy of the agenda in front of them? Anybody have anything that they want to highlight or add or subtract from the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. It's been made and seconded. Approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we'll move on to approve of the minutes as presented from October 10th, 2024. Everybody have them to look at? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Laura. All in favor, say aye.
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 Good. All right, and we'll move on to new business, and we will first turn it over to Joe Sheeran in his introduction of Christy Reese.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We actually have a full commission now. When People Who Live gets here, we'll have 7 members. The first time in about a year and a half, we've had a full commission. I'd like to welcome Christy Reese. Just some housekeeping. We'll have to do a quick swearing in, and then I'll have you introduce yourself. Does that work? You can come down here. Yeah, right there will work. I'll just have you raise your hand. I, Commissioner Christy
Christy Reese.
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties of
and faithfully discharge the duties of
the Heritage Preservation Commission
the Heritage Preservation Commission
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
Thank you, Joe. Christie, I think we should let you give us a little bit of your background and maybe most importantly, how long you've lived in Maplewood.
Sure, thank you. I have a bachelor's in art history with a minor focus in anthropology. I also have a master's in art history. Bachelor's in art history and a master's in art history. I also have a master's in information science, focus on preservation technology, using technology for preservation. I have over a decade of experience working in cultural heritage institutions. Most recently, I ran the Wichita Art Museum's collection, overseeing the preservation of all exhibitions, artwork, and historical artifacts. I've worked with cemeteries, counties, historical building boards, and archaeological sites, most notably in Texas, where I'm originally from. I have been in Minnesota, Maplewood, for just about 5 months. So as soon as I saw this was an opportunity, I was excited because I've worked with a lot of city councils and boards, historical societies, and I was ready to be a part of the community, and I was excited to be a part of it. So I'm happy there was an opportunity to do that.
Well, thank you. And when Joe sent out your resume or background, I think all our eyes were lifted, and it was good to see that we've got a qualified person that's interested in helping us. So I know, if you know Wichita, that's all about, isn't there a airplane manufacturer there?
Right, Cessnas, yep.
Who is it?
Working with Cessna.
Cessna, okay.
It is it's the airplane capital of the world.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, at one point, I just give you a little history. I worked in Wichita for 4 years. So it's probably one of the only TV markets and newspaper markets in the entire country that actually has an aviation beat. All 4 major outlets have an aviation reporter. I don't know if they still do, but they did when I was a kid working there. And they all started out as one. Boeing, Raytheon, Lear, and Cessna were 4 buddies who went and basically tested airplanes and tried to build airplanes and do all that kind of thing. And then they all kind of went out on their own. Boeing moved out to some way up in Chicago and then over to the West Coast, but the rest of them stayed there. In fact, Wichita State University has one of the best aerospace engineering programs in the country. So people don't realize that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great to have that history. Thank you.
Right, and it's still a big part of the community. I did stuff with Kansas PBS Antiques Roadshow, which is conducted at their aviation museum. So it's very much a part of the community still.
Well, so did you live there a while?
I did for 2 years when I ran the Wichita Art Museum collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And Joe, thanks for that background. Now people know about Wichita, right? Okay, and we're going to welcome our newest member prior to Christie, Pete Belay. Pete? Hi. Good to have you.
Hello.
And thank you, and note that he is present. And Pete, we have approved the agenda, approved the minutes, and introduced Christie Reese, and Joe gave her the swearing in. So you are just ready for new business.
All right.
So, Joe, how about number 2, G-Line?
Okay, so as most people may or may not be aware, the Metro Transit is creating another avenue for bus rapid transit. It's called the G Line. It's going to run from basically Little Canada all the way down Rice Street through downtown St. Paul, and then continue on Robert Street down into West St. Paul. As part of their federal funding, they have to do with the 106 review to make sure there's no historically significant properties in the area. After their review, they concluded that there were 3 properties in the area of, I always mess this up, the area of impact, basically. There were 3 properties in the area of impact that could or should be designated for national historic preservation. Unfortunately, none of them were in the city of Maplewood. One of them was North Heights School, which is at 2651 Rice Street in Roseville. The other one is the Isabel, which is on the west side of St. Paul. It's sort of a group of row homes that has a long history in the state. And then the other one is People's Park, which again is in that same neighborhood. So, as working through the process, those are the properties that will be impacted because we're not, because they don't affect Maplewood. I don't know if the commission has any more they want to do or say about that. The other thing that I wanted to just bring attention to, there are other properties of historic significance along the corridor itself, but they wouldn't be impacted by the line or the construction. They include Hess Hair Mill Lab, which is along the Roseville Heritage Trail. That was surveyed, but it was not eligible as a property. The other one was the St. Paul Waterworks, while important, again, not part of the designated area. There is Commissioner Boulay found also 1820 Rice Street, the old chicken shack, served as several businesses since then. It's currently Lake McCarran's, or McCarran's Lake Chiropractic. And then the last two were Schroeder Milk, which is well documented in our 60 stories, and then Dean's Tavern at 1986 Rice Street, one of the oldest taverns, I believe, in the city of Maplewood. It's currently operated as McCarran's Pub and Grill. And again, while important to us, not part of wouldn't be affected by the line, not in the area of immediate impact. I always mess up that phrasing. Did I say? What is it?
APE, or area of potential effect.
Gotcha. So with that, if anyone has any other additional input, please feel free to share.
Well, I heard yesterday from Tom's Mobile, which is on Rice Street, that it's all gonna be on Rice Street. They're not gonna tear Rice Street up and do anything. They'll realign, take away the center turn and make just right turn lines in there.
Yeah, normally with a bus rapid transit, and again, I don't know all the specifics of this. Normally with a bus rapid transit, the biggest piece of construction generally is building the stations. So they build, the stations are way more built out than you would normally see at a normal bus stop. If anyone's walked along Snelling Avenue in St. Paul, along the A line, there are built-up stations. They have heating at the station. Some of the stations also, again, depending on the type of transit, they'll have ramps so that people who need accessibility could ramp up and wait on the platform. So that's normally where most of the construction comes in.
Stations that I heard about were on Roselawn. One was on Roseville side, and one was on Maplewood side. I think the one car dealership there. Used to be, who was it? Siegel's gas station.
Okay.
And no big loss.
Okay, anything else? All right. We'll move on to strategic planning, Maplewood Historical. I'm sorry. Move on to strategic planning, Maplewood Historical Timeline. Joe?
So with this one, I kept this on there. We talked about it last time. I know Commissioner Koski had brought up some potential properties for that timeline. I don't know if you want to talk about that at this point or wait until we get to unfinished business around mapping potentially historic properties.
Yeah, the list in the agenda is suggestions of what to put on the map, and they're just kind of intended to help support the timeline that's meant to be put together. So we can wait until unfinished business.
And then the other piece of this was identifying historic locations. Again, Commissioner Koski's work does identify that, but I, again, want to open it up back to the commission. Everyone, I believe, has had time to look through very familiar with the sort of our history survey from the 2014. So if there's any properties that we'd like to identify and do a deeper dive into, the same way we did with St. Jerome's, let's open it up for discussion at this point.
Okay, anybody want to bring something forward besides what we've identified? So we have the Ramsey County Poor Farm, Ramsey County Poor Farm Cemetery, Forest Lawn Cemetery Mausoleum, KSTP on Highway 61, St. Paul Regional Water Service, and Asylum Mosque. And is that the former Maplewood Library, Joe? Okay. And that's over in Gladstone. And then Recreation, St. Paul Ski Club, and Aldridge Arena. Anything else? Anyone?
Won't there be
Richard?
more?
Richard?
I'll push the button, but nobody else talks, so I'm gonna talk. Won't this be an ongoing, so there'll be more down the road that other commissions can find properties to put on? Or is it just gonna be a lockdown, this is it, and we go away from it?
Well, I think today it's adequate, and if somebody wants to add something later, they can.
Well, you gotta, let me know if I'm wrong, but don't you, on a computer program, don't you have to put like a spade or a deal where you can break into it and put something in there?
Yeah, I mean, as an HBC, we know our list is always going to be growing, especially because every year structures get older. And so there are always going to be more structures that are considered of historic age or over 50 years of age. And it's one of the responsibilities of the HPC, per the certified local government rules with SHPO, is that we are supposed to be doing kind of continuous surveys in our towns and cities. So I think the idea is that, yeah, every few years, you're going to kind of do a re-survey, a reassessment of what could now be of historic age that wasn't before.
You are more computer literate than I am.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a
Computers
computer
were whole
thing.
room when
And I,
was in.
and I believe to Commissioner Carey's point, we are going to, when I say we, I mean our city's development department will start to do the 2050 plan, comprehensive plan, and as part of that 2050 comprehensive plan, they review a lot of this material. So what I did the last time and do this time is you use whatever their work is as a guide for us, short of members of this commission designating or identifying a property that's not already identified in the 2014 survey.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, anything else on strategic planning?
Well, I think
Anyone?
we still need to, I guess I need clarification what we're trying to do with the list. Are we trying to identify something that we're going to aim to do for local designation or National Register designation? Or are we just saying this is a nice list of historic?
I would say from that list, right, we're obligated by the state office of the State Historic Preservation Office to at least try and work to designate something, whether
Yeah.
it's national or local is up to us. I would say if there's something on that list that is worth having a local designation, let's move forward with it. I know, right, the KSTP, but any one of
Yeah.
them is, but which one would make the most sense? And then that coordinated with, we're doing some development in the Gladstone, we're gonna do some development on the north end, right? We're going to I don't know how public this is, but, no, it is public. D.R. Horton is building a new neighborhood at the Ponds of Battle Creek Golf Course. So it would be nice that if we do any kind of local historic designation, especially the local designation, that it's in coordination with a current development plan. Especially as the local designation, I believe, doesn't preclude them from making any major changes. They could still make changes. It's just sort of an honor to have that designation. Be nice if it was in coordination with a current development project.
Okay.
Are we thinking at some point we're going to recognize these like they did with the plaques with the 100-year-old built houses that were really well preserved?
Yeah,
Is that-
that's we have the official capacity to do a local designation. One of the most recent local designations is the Gladstone Savannah. So it's currently a piece of open space, but it commemorates the fact that there used to be a working train works there.
So this time, is there a chance that the city would set aside some money for the plaques versus having the homeowners pay for them?
It depends on what the circumstances are, but yeah, I think we have, depending on what the plaque is and, you know, the intricacies of the plaque, I think the city could afford if it's within a reasonable amount of money, the city could afford a nice plaque.
Dave, what we might, Bob,
Richard?
what we might want to do is say the commission would like to have a block in the budget so that we could allocate whatever.
The only problem I can see with that is if we identify 10 properties and we have $300, we're going to give them each $30?
But
Or
do we-
are we going to identify only up to the number of plaques we can afford to purchase?
do one a
Because
year.
we're kind of way behind. We need to
Yeah,
catch
but
up.
it'll add on every year if we're putting
yeah.
the budget.
Yeah.
Right, so I might live to see 10 houses?
I might only see one.
All right, so we're identifying 8 here. What, John, you said maybe one a year?
I mean, instead of doing 10, and then forgetting about it for the next 10 years, do like they do for the person of the year or whatever. Pick one thing every year, give them a plaque.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would have to come with, we have to fill out an actual local designation form, you know, make it a formally, officially documented thing. Like we have that for the Brintrop Heritage Farm and the Gladstone Savannah Preserve. And so to basically move something from elsewhere on this list up to that Maplewood Heritage Landmark, we have to actually fill out the local designation form. And we can actually also alert SHPO that it's locally designated. And then these are the kinds of things that are great to put on our website, because at least most HPCs, you have to, the list of your locally designated structures is a separate significant list that goes on your website. Then people like me who are researching like the Mead and Hunt group for G-Line or something like that, go to the local HPC website like, oh, those are the locally significant structures that I might not otherwise see on the National Register. That should also be considered when we're talking about effects within potential effects areas for things like bus routes and stuff like that too.
I'm gonna get in a little bit here too.
Well,
That
Richard,
local-
Richard, speak into your mic. Speak
Oh,
into
you
your
want me
mic.
to push your button?
No, the
Speak into the
microphone,
mic.
so you can hear.
What I'm saying is, you have, no, now you lost my train of thought.
Well, what do you think of that? Think of it
What
just,
what I'm getting at is, we have a local designation, okay? From what I gathered from reading all this books, once we have that, the state or what have you, if they feel it's, one of ours is on the local designation is worth going on to the national, they can take it off of that one and move it from the local to national.
It's easier to do it if it's already locally designated. You have more oomph to get it on the National Register, but it still has to be nationally significant to get on the National Register.
Well, in time, some of them may get that.
Possibly,
Like
yeah.
they- You know, we're looking, our lifetime is short. It could be a long time before some of them get anything.
Maybe I appreciate everybody's input here. To Commissioner Hughes's point and Commissioner Gasper's point, maybe identifying, we could kind of do both at the same time. It's a yes end. We could try to designate one historic house per year and one historic structure per year. My suggestion would be, and this is what I kind of, in the interim, until the next meeting, probably the sort of the best route would be take some time, look into some of the ones on that list, and then maybe come back to the next meeting with not only what the property should be, but some juice behind why. And I have, and the Commissioner Kerry has given and provided, and I have him through the state office, the actual checklist of what needs to go on there. And we do have a couple of past ones. So I could provide the checklist. So this way, as commission members are going through trying to decide which one is the best one, you have the checklist criteria to know what we're actually looking for. So tomorrow, early next week, I could send that checklist. Everyone has the list, and maybe identify two or three, and understand that we're meeting the criteria that the State Office of Historic Preservation, State Office of, or I always say that, the State Historic Preservation Office sets out for us. Because it's not just up to us. It has to meet those.
Right.
Hey, I like this property, but if it doesn't meet the state guidelines,
I just add one more comment. My concern, the only concern what I was saying with multiply, or putting potentially more than one house up at a time, is this list came from 2014. That's 10 years ago. We haven't designated,
Yeah.
maybe one property? So
We could
we're
do
kind
10.
of like behind here. We need to play a little catch-up. That's my only concern.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, it might be good to have Christie get a hold of the 60 Stories book. Maybe that'd help her find some of these locations and what we're talking about. Okay.
Chair? One thing we can do is look at the list in the 60 Stories book too. Is there any one that would be the easiest to do? You know, because one thing we ran into trouble before is a private property starts mucking down with us trying to do something like this. As much as I'd love to have some of those, like the KSTP transmitter, maybe they'd be okay with it now. I don't know. But anytime we approached them, it was always like the mausoleum we had almost done. I thought we did a lot of work on that one, and some of those should be easier than others. I think they were behind it too. Right? We never did designate it. Am I right?
No, I think that I'm not going to address any one of these locations, but I think some might not want to participate.
Yes, that's part of it.
Yeah.
So maybe on the list, if there's a city property, it might be easier to designate that, or a county property, I guess, city or county, or something that's more. If we want to get one done, because otherwise, Commissioner Hughes is right. It's how long do we going to wait on this thing? We should get one on there. It's been too long. We got to get something going.
Were you thinking of a hockey rink?
Yeah.
Oh, a hockey rink, Aldrich or something? Is that what you're thinking? Oh, that's historic. It is. Yeah, that would be a good
It's
idea.
historic and it's very unique.
Yes,
Very-
actually,
there aren't
that's
very many of those left. Most of them have been taken down, so.
that's actually a really good one. I like it.
I had talked to the guy that ran that. He moved out to Vadnais Heights, but he was in favor of it.
Hey, that's
Okay, so Joe, you'll send something out?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Poor Farm Barn signage.
All right, awesome. With this area, steps ahead of us here. So as you're aware, it was brought to the city's attention that the Poor Farm Barn signage at the cemetery, actually the Ramsey County Cemetery signage was in disrepair. Our public works or our public development folks reached out to their facilities folks to alert them, and in the meantime, they had replaced the sign. That's what it looks like. That's the signage. So we appreciate Ramsey County's quick action in not only replacing this sign, but overall looking at their signage throughout Maplewood to ensure it is all in good shape.
Very nice, thank you. Okay, move on to number 5, Step Back Original Maplewood Historical Society.
This one is Commissioner Boulet's entry. I'm going to pull it up on the screen here and have him take it over.
kind of a little history tidbit. One of the mysteries we've had is we don't know why the original Maplewood Historical Society failed. We still don't know, by the way. And this was an attempt to at least get some background on what happened. And does anybody remember the Heritage Center?
Yep.
Edgerton. On Edgerton. And how this started was I tried to Google it, and believe it or not, and it's in your packet, is there's a balloon right where this house was. Because it was the Heritage Park, or whatever it was supposed to be called. Yeah, there we go. Right where that balloon is, in that playground, I think is exactly where the house was, because there's still some oak trees there that are pretty old. So I'm assuming must have been part of the background. So the story goes is that the city wanted to park north of the school there, and this was all part of a truck farm. And then Early on, they got some property and they put a skating rink in, and there was plans for development. And it was an interesting negotiation. You could go read the city minutes. They're kind of fascinating to go the back and forth and trying to acquire the property. And one of the clauses in the property was the last occupant of the house got to live there for 10 years after the city bought it. So was it Charles Ostrigan was the last one? He was the last one. He was kind of a stubborn negotiator, but the house lingered long enough where the city decided to save the house when he passed away. So they had visions of having a heritage center there. And back in those days, community development was really big in creating clubs. They created a gem and mineral club, a coin club. They helped create the stamp club. The stamp club's still going on. That's been going on for 60 years, and now they meet in White Bear Lake. But those clubs, they did a lot back then. So at the same time, they wanted a historical society, and I talked to Bruce Anderson, if anybody remembers him from Parks. He had some things to say about it, and Pauline Staples was involved, and Old City people were. And the reason why the house stayed as long as it did, it had two caretakers that did a lot of kind of the elbow grease to keep it running. So the Historical Society failed after a couple of years. Terry Stanke was one of the big people involved back then. Justa Cardinal, she was big in it. So a lot of people were involved. They had a lot of members, and they had meetings and such, but whatever happened, it just didn't work. And then the city was kind of had this building until trying to figure out what to do with it, and then it deteriorated over time, and then by 1992, it turned into a practice burn. So,
I was on the fire department at that time.
okay, so they burned it, they cleared it, and that's where it was. And then literally 6 months later, they began the process to start the new Historical Society. So I thought there's the tie-in to the current Historical Society. It was from the ashes of the old one rose the new one. So that was just kind of a fun little tidbit.
Very good,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, the upstairs bathroom ended up in the
Very good,
Downstairs.
very good,
believe
Pete.
it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, do
that
you have anything to add,
show or
Richard?
the ordinance is still in existence. Nobody took it off the books.
That's the other thing. The ordinance still exists.
You
That's
put a
correct.
new
Yes.
ordinance added to it, plus, Joe's gonna hate me for this, but when Bob Cardinal was mayor, the planning commission came to him and said they wanted a heritage preservation deal, and they had a whole deal that the council provided, and us on the, at the time, we didn't wanna go too hog wild on putting all their agendas on there, because we didn't wanna feel like we were pushing the people.
Now, what happens to old resolutions? Do they expire, or do they have to get rescinded? Or do they just exist forever?
They exist. That's a really great question for our city clerk, Andrea
Yeah.
Sint. They do from time to time go through and clean up some of the old statutes.
Okay.
But wouldn't
Okay.
that have to be through a council amendment? Or should we get the city attorney involved in this?
I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think it's just,
And pushing,
I think it's fine.
and pushing something.
Yeah, it's just an interesting, I wish I knew what happened to all the items that were donated. I remember that was one of the mysteries, is they had all a bunch of items, and we don't know what happened to them all, so.
Okay, let's move on to number 6.
Yep.
Save the date. Preserve Minnesota Conference, September 10 through 12, New Ulm. Joe, did you want to comment on this?
No, this is just one small comment. The reason why I pushed this out there is I got an email from the State Historic Preservation Office, and they were asking for presentations. So if any of the local historical societies or the local HPCs wanted to do a presentation, and so when I saw this, I figured, while it's still several months away, if anybody had a desire to go, it'd be nice to know now so you could plan for it.
Very
And
good.
it's in New Ulm. It's a cool
Okay,
location.
very good. Thanks, Joe. Okay, moving on to number 7, Maplewood Heritage Award. Anybody have any comments on that?
I gotta look at the list again.
Pete is recipient.
Yeah,
And, were you the latest, or?
I don't know.
No, the latest recipient was Virginia Gaynor.
Okay.
Yes,
oh,
She was given
Yes,
she was
that's
given the award last year. So I'm assuming the commission wants to go ahead and
Yes.
continue giving this award. So my suggestion going forward is Maplewood Living, which is our monthly magazine, is going to go out at the end of January. We could put a blurb in Maplewood Living calling for people to submit someone who's made an extraordinary effort to preserve, teach, or advance Maplewood's history.
Very good.
I do have some ideas, so that'll be good.
Good.
Do we just send them to you, Joe?
No, what I will do. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way. No, what I will do is we've created a form.
Oh, okay.
So basically, what we do is we'll send people to the form. You can fill out the form, and the good thing about the form is I don't have 8 emails going around. Everything's just in a very neat, by the book, policy kind of way, and the form just asks the name of the person who is being designated, the person who is nominating them, and then why. And the most important thing is why they're being nominated. I could open up the thing in the beginning of February. We could have it run all the way from February to mid-March. Run it at Maplewood Living. We could push it out on social media. But what I would say is I'll give this group access to that link, and please push it out among your circles for nominations.
Very good. Thanks, Joe. Okay, next is roles of HPC and Maplewood Area Historical Society.
Okay. For this one, we I don't know if we need to go back to the board, but we can. I'll just give it to you here. So essentially, the roles are, and you had asked this,
Yes.
Commissioner, and I'm not quite sure where what
Well-
the, sort of the end goal is, but I could tell you from a base
Well, just-
standpoint.
I think, Joe, I think for our new member, I think it's good to have a understanding of what it is and what are the two organizations. and-
Gotcha. Yeah, so Maplewood, and we did explain this, and we did talk a little bit
okay, good.
offline.
Okay,
So we gave her a little bit of a primer of, I
Good.
shouldn't say we gave her, Commissioner Reese and I had a conversation offline about sort of what amenities were available. So yes, this board is the Maplewood Maplewood Heritage Preservation Commission. That is the official city designation. We are we are granted our authority through the State Office of Historic Preservation. Our role and our duty statutorily is to safeguard the cultural resources of the city by preserving sites, structures, districts, landmarks, which reflect the elements of the city's culture, socioeconomics, and political and architecture history. So a lot of what we do in this commission is land-based. And so we also have the Maplewood Area Historical Society, which is a completely separate entity. We're not involved in their day-to-day. We don't run their board. We don't oversee anything they do. However, our one connection is they're the leasee of our land. So they're leasing the land on which the Burntrip Heritage Farm was moved to. And they're the leasee, I believe, we own the buildings, but they're the leasee of the property. So that's the difference between the two. I would encourage you to connect with Commissioner Hughes. He's on their board, and their executive director is a guy by the name of TJ or Tom Molesky. And they're doing some great stuff over there, which I think we're going to get to in a minute here.
Okay,
Joe, the other thing
Richard?
You want to speak?
Yeah.
Pete?
Chrissy, you might find this interesting. The lease that they signed with the city is a 99-year lease that was signed in 1999 or 2000. So they're safe for a little while.
The lease was actually renewed at some point in the mid-aughts.
Oh, and
There
a
was
short.
there were some things that had not happened, but there was some
Oh.
alterations. I can't even talk tonight. There were not altercations, alterations to the properties, and the lease was renewed. I believe off the top of my head, somewhere around 2014. So again, it extends at 14
Is it
years.
still 99 years?
It's still a 99
Oh,
years,
okay, that's
yes.
all, that's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One question I have on the ordinance, it's section 2308, 2, on page 13. The repository for documents in the city, that's something we should probably take a look at, because there should be, when staff leave, there should be a better system for repository documents. Because I think too much of it is people leave and then everything goes away. So we might need a better system.
So this is, okay, I appreciate where you're going with this.
Yeah.
This is these are documents that are probably best and are probably currently being held by our community development department. Because these would all fall under sort of the guidelines of our city building official. If they're related to, I think some of the stuff some of the historical stuff that we talk about is kind of out, not historical, that something cool happened in Maplewood, but it didn't involve a place, a structure, or something like that. So, yeah, we do have, and as you know, our archive via
Yes.
city council. These are archives for our meetings are also archived in that same location that's accessible to the public.
Okay.
So, but as far, and we could get into this conversation offline, it's just what documents. So the office of the building official, so right here, the office of the building official is the designated as the repositor for all studies, surveys, reports, programs, and historic sites and landmarks.
Yeah, and I don't know if they have all that. I've got a sneaky feeling they don't. So we should work on that a bit.
Okay.
I don't know how to do it, but the having, what we have online already is great. The documentation's good to have it there.
This was actually a discussion that we had as a group shortly before you joined us.
Oh, okay.
Where we found that some people had stuff at home and they brought it in, and we've collected quite a bit of it, and it's now been turned over to the city.
Oh, okay,
So
good, good.
I'm sure there's stuff out there for people that got disconnected years ago and have it in their garage or the recycling bin somewhere, but I know we did collect quite a bit of it.
Okay.
Yeah, good. And all the documents and all of the documentation that has been collected since I took over is captured in the city repository.
Okay.
So if you did it, I don't know how easy it is to find.
Okay.
But it's keyword searches, you should find mostly all the documents that I've been curating since.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks, Pete. Richard?
Okay, I don't know if you know, how many, the Historical Society has the lease. Now they have also, there's a museum group, and now they're starting a book club there that they want membership to sign up, and they're gonna meet two days a month, but yet we don't even have I'm a lifetime member of the thing, and so is Bob, but we don't have a meeting for the historical. Yeah, and he's in life too. We don't have a meeting for the historical people, but yet they want to have 2 meetings for this book club that they decided to bring in.
Well,
I think we should have, even though we're separate, we're not separate because we're somewhat tied together.
Okay, well, David probably can pitch that.
That's a discussion if you guys want to have after this. But again, I've told you before, nonprofit city, you're members of the society, but the conversation does not belong in the city office. Because the city has nothing to do with
But
the historic.
The city,
It's a separate.
the city
uh-uh.
has the,
Fiduciary
Lease.
responsibility.
Yeah, while the city has the lease, as long as they're caretaking for the property and the buildings, that's all we have jurisdiction over.
Right, and we're,
Whatever programming they do has nothing to do. It's like renting a house, right? I rent a house out. As long as my folks are following the law, it doesn't matter what they do in that house. They don't have to tell me what they're doing in their house, in the house. So I understand I understand there's been this long coordination between the two, and that coordination isn't what it used to be. But the city and this commission doesn't have an authority to deem them to invite us to things, and they typically do. I mean, their meetings are all open. Again, I don't want to get into that, but, yeah.
That's enough. Thank you. I want to let Christy know that she can pop in at any time if you have any questions or whatever, okay? And we'll move on to the, thank you, Joe, for bringing that up about the roles of the HPC and Maplewood Area Historical Society. We'll move on to Maplewood Area Historical Society update.
and our technology professor over there will have it up here
I'll
in just a
walk you-
second.
I'll try to walk through as best we can. We'll start right here.
Okay, well, I've either got to pull, oh, okay, I can read it now. So these are the statistics from last year. We had over 16,000, almost 17,000 visitors. We did not have 2,200 visitors a day. That's the total people that walked through. And those are the ones that are counted, but there's countless people that use the trails and walk up. I was over there painting a couple months ago, and there were people walking up, walking their dogs and coming over and talking to me and all kinds of stuff. Some of the camps, as you can see, the farmers markets attract over 6,000 people. Gave 103 people private tours, student groups. That student group is going to probably triple this year. We're going to make a concerted effort to get as many young people through that farm as we can possibly do this year. Research, we have a major research project going right now, which is to catalog all of the Lilly newspapers from the whole eastern side of the metro, and that's going to be stored. It's going to hopefully, I don't want to tie him to a timeline. We have one person on a grant that's doing it. Hopefully sometime in the next 18 months, that's all going to be online, available for anybody to use. And what we're really hoping is that the teachers tap into that, and that becomes a resource for all the kids that are doing history projects and local communities to tap into that. Art fairs, over 3,800 people. We had almost 700 people at the farm for our Christmas celebration, and you'll see some picture of that in a couple of minutes. And 3,200 people through on-site rentals. You may move on, sir. Okay, and these are just some of the images of the barn. There's some carolers from Christmas, native heritage, which we hope to grow again this year. This is a new project. Jeremiah Ellis got a grant, and he's going to study an African-American family that lived in Maplewood, the first lived in Maplewood. And I'm not related to them, but their last name is, they're the Hughes family. So he will be putting that study out, and he's going to publish a book. Okay, some more day camps. And you can see there's a association with the local fire department and the fire department visitors.
That was, I believe, Public Safety Day. They had, I believe Father's Day this year was
right
designated
before my
as
time.
Public
Yep.
Safety Day, and they had, because as you know, they have one of the original fire
Yes.
engines out there. That was part of the.
I've climbed around that a few times. Oh, and go back up. And this was anybody recognize our judge for the gingerbread contest? And let's see what else we've got. Oh, this is the project here. And just some more images, basically.
Thank you, David. Pete?
Yeah, I got a,
Wait a minute. Pete?
what's with the Ramsey County Barn? What was that event? I
What
saw
is the
that.
Rams? You know what? I'm not sure. That was
Okay.
before I actually came onto the
Oh,
board.
okay.
There'll be some more stuff coming out in regard to that at some point. We're working on as many native plants as we can get in the garden back here. We have the most fantastic gardener in the history of gardening. He's pulled out thousands and thousands of buckthorn, and it's so much less overgrown than it used to be.
Okay,
So, there
John?
you are in a nutshell.
Thank you, David.
Year in review.
John?
My question is, when did the Lily newspaper start? And you have
1960s, I gotta
you
think.
have them back to that time?
Richard
We-
might know that.
We
Richard,
should
do you know?
have, there are some volumes missing, but yes, we're supposed to have every single copy all the way back to day one. And that's the White Bear, the North St. Paul, the Maplewood, I think the Roseville one's in there. So, yeah, and they're all gonna be online very soon.
Pete?
The thanks for that is North St. Paul Historical Society did the heavy lifting, so to speak. Yes, all the Lily papers are in there. Probably more important is what's the next step for the Lily pictures, photographs?
They're all gonna be scanned also.
Okay.
Everything that was in any one of those newspapers is going to be available online.
Is there going to be the Washington County photos scanned too with the both counties, or are they going to give the pictures to the other?
I would have to check into that.
Okay.
I'm not absolutely sure on that.
Okay, I would just add that if somebody wants to take a look at them, they could go out to the Heritage Farm and take a look at these. They're gigantic books, like 3 feet by 18 inches. They're gigantic, and they got like rows and rows of them. So that'd be a good reason to go out there. They're in the basement. You know, if you do.
If you do decide you want to go see them, contact them ahead of time because they're in a dry museum setting so that we don't lose the pages. So the curator would actually have to be down there with you to go through them. But yes.
Well, that's where they are. Okay. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, demo permits. Joe?
We currently have no demo permits.
Okay, 0. Okay, unfinished business, Maplewood potentially historic structures. Laura, were you going to talk about this? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the last pages in the agenda packet have this list that we were talking about. So the previous meeting, for some back news and to Phil and Christy, we've been working on mapping, basically trying to collect one comprehensive list of all historic structures in Maplewood, whether or not they're historically significant. It's really just, are they historical? Are they over 50 years of age? And so I've been collating that in GIS and a geodatabase. And Commissioner Hughes has been working on collecting additional data in Google Earth and trying to map additional things I don't have. Because we have so many different kinds of lists from various surveys with the Century Homes Project that I know Gaspar was helping head up a while ago. There's like 2 different Century Homes projects that have 2 different lists that kind of overlap and sometimes don't. And we've had various cultural resources surveys from actual firms coming through for different things. We've had the 2014 Historic Context Study, and we've had, like Virginia Gaynor, we mentioned earlier, also helped inventory a good deal of properties. So, and then the State Historic Preservation Office has their own list of properties. So it's basically been trying to make one cohesive list, everything in one spot and mapped. So that's what the geodatabase project has been, which is, it's mostly done. And mostly Hughes has been helping tie up some of the loose ends on his end of things.
I really don't have any more.
Yeah, so then,
A list of houses I compiled that I think we should really seriously look at.
okay, yeah, and so then we just have to figure out how to get that data over to me so I can put it into the rest of the database. But, and then to Curry's point earlier, that will be growing. That's not like it's the one and done. Historic structures are coming up all the time because time keeps moving. So we'll keep adding as the HBC moves forward, but just trying to get everything collated and collected and organized so we know what our universe of objects is in Maplewood that we're working with. Then the list that, I don't know if you, Joe, did you send her the list that you had sent us for the last agenda packet, the historic places in Maplewood list?
I did not send that list itself, but it's part of the I believe I sent you the 2014 survey. So it's part of that.
Yeah,
That's
some
where
of
that
them
list
are.
came
Some of
from.
them were in the 2014 context study. But then Joe helped pull together a list of just generally like what the context study highlighted as places to investigate and what we already have listed and stuff like that. So this list, that's another list that's in the agenda packet, is really just because the geodatabase purpose was also to help put a map up on our website for the public to be able to see of what the structures are. We have those several hundred structures in the geodatabase, and it's a bit overwhelming. So the point of this list is basically creating a proposal of what would we want to put up on the public map? Like, how can we revise it down to structures that the public would be interested in, that are significant to Maplewood history, but trying to revise it down to, I think at the last meeting we said maybe like 20 structures. It's not a long list, especially with when we look at this list, and you just said you have so many more historic homes coming up. So I decided the goal of this map, if it's going up on our website, we already have the 60 stories up on the website, not on our HBC webpage specifically, but under historical Maplewood. We have the 60 stories up. We have Commissioner Boulay helping head up creating that timeline. And so I thought the goal of this list could be, if we're going to have it up, it should help bolster the resources that are already available to the public or that we're trying to make available to the public. And so it should help kind of cross-reference what we have in the 60 stories and what might be going up in the timeline. So I kind of tried to make that the nexus of trying to select what these 20 properties could be on the list. So that's what is in the packet, is the 20 properties I tried to kind of revise down to. I sort of came up with categories of like what are the historical characteristics that seem most significant to Maplewood specifically as a character. So you'll see that in the bold, like the New Canada is early historical settlement, Gladstone, agriculture, specifically with truck farming in particular, the incorporation of Maplewood, because it has a long history before it was even incorporated as Maplewood. And then we have 3M is its own thing kind of under Maplewood Incorporation, because it sort of helped lead to it being able to be incorporated separately. And then just general categories that are significant to any town or city of commerce, civic life, and recreation. So I kind of basically tried to find structures, properties that fit each of these categories. They also have to be extant, still standing. So that was one of the qualifiers of being on the list. And that's because we've discussed creating a whole separate list of the non-extant places in Maplewood that we'd like to highlight. And I think something like Boulay's story about the old Maplewood Historical Society being a good contender, the Green Book location you brought up at the last meeting also being a good contender. So non-extant things are going to be a whole separate list. This is just what's still standing. So it's kind of also tried to pull together from, and I have it in the list at the top, the 1, 2, 3, what's in the historic context study as already suggested as National Register eligible, what do we already have in our local designation, trying to incorporate all of those. Again, getting it down to 20 was difficult. And so it's definitely open to criticism if anyone wants to bring up ideas of what to switch out. One of the third category I tried to highlight was the growing cultural diversity of Maplewood, as we've talked about in this HBC, of trying to help actually highlight non-white properties, because we have a multitude of cultures in Maplewood and a multitude of historical properties that are over 50 years of age that are related to non-white cultures. And so I think we should try and help pluck a few good ones for this list as well, to highlight for our public map on the website. So I have a couple on here. I honestly had a hard time coming up with a good third option for because I don't want to make it all religious, because that feels too easy to go for religious properties. The funeral home across from Gladstone Savannah Park is already being demolished, so that would have been a good contender, but that won't be standing anymore, so that's a non-extant in the future. So I'm kind of looking for other suggestions to help fill out that third, like something that would help highlight immigrant culture, or especially I think Hmong culture would be great. I don't have a good Hmong example on this list. I think there's an Islamic example, and what's the other one that I have?
Filipino Center.
Thank you, yes, the Filipino Center.
I think I'm not positive, but I believe General Vang Pao owned a house in Maplewood, if we could identify that, because he is the leader of at least one of the sects of the Hmong. I'm not sure if it's the
Yeah, I
green or
don't-
the white,
I
but
don't know if it's still there. I think that got torched or burned down.
No, it's
one,
still there.
well, that was his son's house.
Oh, that was his
his
son's
son's house.
By my house,
Oh, is it?
yeah.
Okay, good.
By Hill Murray.
Oh, okay, good.
Hillcrest.
Oh, okay.
That would be one, potentially we take a look at, because he is a very important man in their culture.
Right. Okay, anyone else? Anyone?
Thank you very much for putting this list together. I can't begin to tell you how thorough of a job Commissioner Koski has done on this. She has gone absolutely above and beyond and deserves, here's the deal, you will get paid. The one thing I forgot to let the commission know, and I'll get to this in a second, but I would really appreciate all your help. And with that, and I know Commissioner Hughes also chipped in. You hit almost 100 houses throughout the course of the summer, taking photos and doing that kind of fun stuff.
No, that's John, the photo
Oh. Was John?
I did that a while ago.
Yeah. So we appreciate all of your help.
John just gave me the folder with 400 houses in it.
What I would ask at this point, Commissioner Koski, is where do you need us to pick up the ball from here? I think this is a great list. This is probably, my guess is we've GIS these via addresses anyway. So maybe we could get together and just take the next step on that interactive map.
Yeah, all I need to know, because we've already, again, updating Christie, we've confirmed with the city that we can put a web map up on our website. And I think it'd be great if we could tie it in with the existing historical, there's Maplewood History website page already up. And I think it'd be great if we could tie it in with that. And then we can also link it to, because I try to indicate in this list which structures are mentioned in like the 60 stories, which are eligible, which are locally designated, et cetera, just so we know where all these are tying in. And whatever ends up on the timeline, I think it'd be great if we could just make links in the timeline of like, and here's a structure related to this timeline event that's on there. So what I'm looking for with this list is just to I want the commission to review it. Let me know if you have any ideas of things that should be switched out, because I'm tech savvy about it, but I don't have the most history knowledge of Maplewood. So if there are things that other people here think there might be better examples of for that characteristic I brought up, or again, especially that third other cultural property that is just non-white. It's very straightforward, non-white. We need other diversity being brought up. We have it, and we need to be able to help highlight it in this map. So if someone wants to chase down the General Bang Pao house and see if that is still standing, I think that'd be a great example to add.
You can find that and date it. The General Powell's house.
Yeah, I
Does
know right
anybody-
about where it is.
Oh, great. Yeah, if you're able to help nail it down and confirm it. And it we'd also probably have some sort of historical references we can add to it, because I also personally don't know this person. I don't know his history and who this person is. So the other goal, and this is to confirm for Joe, everything is mapped. I have the locations of these down, except that structure I don't know about. And we have a lot of documentation that we can attach to each of these points. So the idea is when someone clicks on it, a form or a newspaper article or something pops up with it, and photographs, whatever we have to basically say, well, you want to look at that? There's stuff for you right there. Just articles you can download, whatever. So if we can have actual documentation of some sort to go with that, if we can include that house, that'd be great.
Did we get in trouble by pinpointing that house on a map?
I don't know.
You
I don't know enough of the history.
Somebody else tried to
That's-
bomb it?
I don't know his face.
Oh,
There he is.
Is it a sensitive, would it be a sensitive location to bring to light?
I don't, that's what I'm asking.
I don't know enough about the history.
You know, I wouldn't want him to sue us because we pointed out where he lived.
He's in Florida now, as far as I know. I know he's got family members here. I have a former colleague who was his shaman, who's a teacher in North St. Paul.
Oh, okay.
And she knew him, spoke very highly of him. I mean, he's very revered in that the Hmong who are like close to our age, in their 50s. Like the first wave, he was very ingrained in their culture. He was their leader. He's who helped get them out of the country. He's very well revered, yeah. Somebody you don't know about, you should really learn about.
Clients that are Hmong and they,
Yeah. That house you told me about that's in the 60 stories, last week, and I won't give the address out because I don't want to give the private addresses out until
Okay,
we
yep.
have spoken to those people. It's magnificent. It is, it's over in Gladstone. It is absolutely the Schornberg or something like that family. It was an older family. The inside of it's immaculate. Whoever redid that, it is. I have identified 6 houses that architecturally are very like 1920s, 1900 period, and the insides of them, the woodwork, the architecture is pretty much intact. They're absolutely beautiful. The one that I just mentioned, it does have significance because it's in 60 stories.
okay.
The other 5 are in very good shape. You can look at them in a realtor site because every one of them has been
Is this
For sale?
been up for sale in the last like 7 or 8 years. But I don't want to give out the addresses because people will start looking in other people's houses. And I think I don't know if it's legal, but I certainly would not do it. But,
I just glad.
That's pretty good.
did you cut me off 10 minutes ago?
No, I had the list you had sent me yesterday. I thought you wanted me to put it in the packet, and because it was a digital file and not a Word file, I was going to pull it up on the screen, which I just did. And then when you started talking about not putting the
I sent you that note that maybe we shouldn't put private addresses
Okay.
up. Because you can look them up on realtor.com.
Are you
I
talking
think that's, that brings up a point too that I was thinking about when I made this list, was trying to avoid too many like private residences and making, like highlighting them on the public map, which, I mean, they're already inventoried publicly on the SHPO portal web viewer you can go to. It's not uncommon to do that, but if we were going to put them on a public map on the website, I would like to ask the homeowner first, just to make sure they're okay with it. There's nothing like illegal about it, but I think it's just nice to pass that by. And I think especially for somebody with a sensitive history like the general, that actually might be not great to highlight that location.
I think if we decide we want to put private homes on there, that we need to develop a letter and have the city sign off on the letter we're going to send and ask these people, this is what we're doing. We would like your permission to add us to the list. And if they say no, then
Yeah.
we don't do it, because we don't want to be, getting our citizens upset just to put their house on our list.
Of course, when we did the 50 house thing, we had all the houses and addresses and people who live there out in public, so.
Yeah, and there's really nothing illegal about it. Just to think if we have the option, we might as well be
yeah.
considerate.
Yeah, I appreciate the concern for people's privacy, but if you have someone's address and you go to Ramsey County's property tax website, you can find way more information than we're
Yeah.
providing.
You should
Yeah.
be able to
You can
find.
find everything about
But,
it.
Yeah.
but with Commissioner Hughes's conversation, we could probably do that. I'll ask if we could put a letter together from the city asking if permission. We're letting them know that we're putting together a list of 100-year-old houses that are, of some significance in our community, and would they want to be on our interactive website, especially if we have some history behind the house.
Yeah, I think it'd just be a courtesy, even if we're not, because we don't have to ask for permission, even if we weren't.
Yes.
It would just be a nice courtesy to say, by the way, we're highlighting your house on the website, and if you didn't know, it's for this historic reason. Like the only residence I have on the list that I'm proposing is the house at 1800 English, because it's significance to the Gladstone area. It doesn't have to be on there, but I tried to get several properties for Gladstone that weren't just the park that everyone knows about. I'm trying to highlight other things that may not be obvious. Another goal of the list, trying to highlight things that may not be obvious to most Maplewood residents just driving through.
You have two schools that,
Yeah, there are two
there are houses
schools.
that were used to be schools.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Currently private residences.
So let me know if this works for next steps. You and I could get together, go through this list, work with our ArcGIS folks to get them in the database. We'll work to get permission. Well, not permission, but at least give folks a heads up that this is what I would do is give them an opt-out clause. That was a great idea you came up with, just an opt-out clause, just a heads up, we're doing this. If you don't want to be on it, we'll take you off. Give them X amount of time and go from there.
Yeah, from what I've heard, at least one of these private homeowners is pretty private. So I think they would prefer to know in advance. But while we're doing that, we can still do the outreach and ask. But I guess it does, from a glance at this list, does anybody want to review before our next meeting and provide feedback?
Sure.
Yeah,
think
would
we
you
all
also, it sounds like you're also open to not only kind of yay or nay houses on this list, or not houses, but properties. What other properties should be on the list as well? Are you asking that?
Right. Well, I think at least at our last meeting, we thought it might be best for a public map to be pretty focused and not get crazy all over the board. So I think we kind of agreed on trying to keep it tight to 20 properties. So if you want to propose one that's not on the list, you then have to decide which one you want to take off the list. I do have only 19 on here right now because I was waiting to get a third suggestion for another non-white cultural heritage site. So there's a slot open for that. And I'm requiring 3 personally. If other people have opinions, you can say so. But
Let me talk to the gentleman who's doing the book and see if that property still exists.
yes, that actually sounded like a great idea. If there is an extant part of those properties, that'd be great.
What about the Priory? Is that something?
I don't know if they're still using that, are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
I'm sorry,
Are
what?
you talking about the property out by Hill Mary, the
Yeah.
monastery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the Priory is still in use. It's the Tubman House. It's actually a location for women who are in abusive relationships.
But there's a
That's-
cathedral. Well,
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all same part of the property.
Yeah, right.
It's very much an active use.
That was at the sister's house up there?
Yeah, the Priory.
Yep.
Didn't
Well,
we
there's a new
actually-
one. They have the new one.
When they came in for renewal, or doing something up there, she wanted actually to put it on the historic preservation list.
Was that the property that we had somebody was doing a repair to?
Yeah.
That
That
came through?
because they were trying to modernize the building. If it's the same property by Hill Mary, the Priory, they had come in front of us for a couple of different things, and a lot of what they're doing is modernizing the building.
Right, it was like an
Concrete.
outdoor staircase or something.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah,
It stuck in my little brain for some reason.
Well, I'm going to qualify
could-
this. So I'd say let's plan at the next meeting to finalize the list. So if you do have suggestions, be prepared with your documentation of like, here's what should be on the list, and here's what I think should come off. And I think just so we make sure we actually get it done and complete a step, let's review it in the meantime. We'll finalize it at the next meeting with whatever changes people suggest. We'll discuss them and we'll decide on the final list. And then we can work on actually making it published on the city website. So let's just make that the goal. And then, what else was I thinking? Yeah, if you do have stuff you want to add that I may not know about, it'd be nice to have that historical, you don't have to have it ready at the next meeting, but having the historical documentation of some sort, photos, articles, inventory forms, something that we can add to the website people can look at too. And I especially would like Boulet's feedback regarding the timeline. If you have an idea of what's going in the timeline, if you think there might be better options to help support what you're putting in the timeline, I definitely would like that feedback. I just kind of guessed at what you'd probably be highlighting, but yeah.
Okay, Laura, could you make sure that all the commission members get the list of 19?
It's
It's
in the
your
agenda packet.
Yes.
Yep, it's at the end of the
Oh,
packet.
that's the list?
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
list.
All right.
Can I ask one question on the timeline? Are we just going to create the timeline and put the houses on it? Are we going to come from 1950, whatever it was, forward and prior to that first date? Like, can we go back and see if we can find any Native American history that may have taken place?
That's the,
Pete?
yeah, the,
Your button's not on.
oh. There, now it's on. I know. So that was one thing I struggled with is what is this timeline supposed to look like? I mean, Little Canada this is their timeline. I mean, it could be that big. I mean, it could go that far, but I didn't think we wanted to do that. So I'm thinking a little more simpler, but definitely incorporating all the property dates in there is a big one. It doesn't have to be really long, but yeah.
Joe, or Pete, I can show an example. I can show an example what,
Little Canada did a page by page, like 1849 to have 5 things on it. I mean, we could go that deep, but we probably don't need to, I'm guessing. But I wasn't sure, because once you start looking at timeline, like, oh, that's right, okay, we should designate when North St. Paul broke away in 1887. We should designate when Little Canada broke away in 53. Maplewood 57. Oh, wait, it became a city in 74. I mean, that's where it's a rabbit hole. It really becomes a rabbit hole. And so I would want some guidance from the commission. What I should.
Little Canada is our generation will read.
Yeah. Oh,
Our generation will read through that.
yeah.
Their generation's going to go, they're going to go
Stream
get
it
their
later.
phone and it's
Yeah.
blurbs, little boxes and blurbs. That's what people now want.
Well, it'd be
So
great to have a link to every. Goal
Yeah.
should be have a link to every timeline item.
Everything.
That's my next
Everything
question.
on this should be linked, whether the timeline is the,
Okay.
the table of contents or whatever, but everything on this should be linked
Okay.
together.
I mean, like actual link on the timeline. You click on the link, you go to the story.
You
Yeah.
go to the story.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And the whole,
All cross-reference supporting documents.
All right.
Yeah.
so that great big book
that
that's
makes it-
published right now doesn't need to be online. It can be little blurbs, and if you want to go off somewhere and read the story,
Okay.
you go read the story.
Which the 60 stories being on the website makes that really
That
easy
helps.
Yep,
to do.
it does.
I mean, I would say that too. Think about your goal is to be on a web page.
Yeah.
So it's got to be legible and interesting enough to be on a website page.
Okay.
And how long is that actually? Kind of.
I think that's a working document. I don't think it's definitive, so.
Living and breathing.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, once we have this page, we can do some of these things, creative things these other cities are doing, where they're putting projects on there and all kinds of other stuff. Lots of links, there's so much. Really need to go to New Ulm, somebody that hasn't been there, and you really need to interact with some of these cities that are doing
Yeah.
just spectacular stuff, and we can do it. We, though, are going to need to cooperate with the society and with some of the, maybe even like North St. Paul. We're going to need to spread out a little bit. We can't, if we're going to do big stuff, we need to spread out. We can't be worried about the little box that we're in. We got to really grow.
Okay. I am going to look for our April meeting,
Actually, the next meeting is going to be in March.
March, okay.
So we went we're back to every other month.
Okay, so six meetings a year. Okay, so March would be the 13th, right? Thursday, the 13th? That's our next meeting.
Yes.
I'm in Florida the week after that.
The 13th, March 13th, Thursday.
Correct.
Okay.
Before we adjourn, I have one item that I haven't put on here, and I didn't put it on because I didn't go ahead on it until today. The city council, if you've been paying attention, has decided to provide $50 per meeting stipends to all commission members on all of our commissions. So for every commission meeting you attend, so if you don't come, you don't get the money. But for every commission meeting you attend, you will receive a $50 stipend that'll be paid out in June and December. And it'll be paid through a payroll. So I'm just giving you that heads up. The next piece of correspondence you should see is from somebody named Mike Darrow, who's our assistant city manager, or somebody from our finance department asking you for payroll information or asking you for banking information, because it's going to be via direct deposit. So if you get something from the city asking you for that kind of information, it's not a scam. But please, if you do get something like that, just give me, before you go ahead and do it, give me a heads. I don't know how they're going to do it just yet, but I'm giving you a heads up in case that happens.
They'll send it to you in gift cards.
Yeah. So if you do get some kind of email like that, just they'll probably let the liaisons know.
Divide it amongst us.
I think we should all donate it to Koski.
Can we move up our meetings to once a week?
Architecture's not paying like it used to.
Okay, anything on visitor presentations? Anyone? No one here? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Or adjourn?
Second.
All in favor,